Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Debra Eckerling, creator of the Deb Method for Goal Setting Simplified. I'm also the author of Your Goal Guide and 52 Secrets for Goal Setting and Goal Getting. And I am all about helping people live the life they deserve and desire through figuring out your goals and turning them into reality. And you cannot reach your goals on your own. You need your people. So every week I bring together some of my people to have a conversation about an important topic. And today we are talking about leadership, because without leadership, and I guess even followership, the leadership part is probably a little bit more important, but leadership and teamwork, which, by the way, is one of the chapters in 52 Secrets, you kind of have, we're all in this together. And I think that whatever part of the puzzle you are, you've got something really super important to contribute. And if you're watching this as GoalChat Live, great. If you're watching the replay, fabulous. You may even be listening to us as the GoalChat podcast on the Marketing Podcast Network. No matter how you found us, we're so glad you're here and choosing to learn more and get motivated about leadership. And such an awesome panel we have today. We've got Marissa wheeling Ciesluk, and Marissa and I are Innovation Women Friends together, which is, if you are a woman or women-friendly speaker and you don't know about Innovation Women, I highly recommend you check it out, because Bobby Carlton is all about uplifting you to spread your message, which is kind of also what this show is about. So I'm really glad we're able to have you on this show. We also have, we're going to see if I do the pronunciation right. I've been practicing. Monique Daigneault. And Monique and I are authors together at Mango Publishing. Mango put out my first and is putting out this new book as well. And you had a book launch over the summer. I'm going to let you tell everybody about it in a moment, but you are all about leadership, as is my dear friend Jess Dewell. And I love the Jess Dewell story. Jess is also one of the experts I interviewed for the new book, but Jess and I met through a mutual friend from back when GoalChat was a Twitter chat. It has since been sunsetted for obvious reasons. It's been sunsetted a couple years now. But we became friends, and that's really what networking and getting to know others is all about, because you never know, which is why I love these conversations so much. And I would love for you all to introduce yourselves better, or just plain introduce yourselves, because pretty much all I said is you're awesome, which is true. Marissa, please share who you are and why you are so excited to have this conversation.
Yes. Well, first of all, thank you so much for including me in this conversation. This is something that I am so passionate about. My work falls at the intersection of leadership and well-being. And how do we think about leadership and well-being and those two things together? So I am on a mission to infuse, to bring more women's voices, to bring more love, and to bring more humanity to not only our workplaces, but our world. And so I am excited for this conversation tonight with all of these amazing women.
And whenever you say that you're on a mission, I love that, because I too, as you know, I'm on a mission to change goal culture in and out of the workplace. And it starts with that information, and then we get to uplift. I mean, isn't that why we're here?
Yes, absolutely. And you know what, I always think about it. I always tell people, and I always roll my eyes when people say, I'm here to inspire you. But I love the word inspire. It comes from the Latin root inspire, which means to breathe life into. And I think that's what leadership is all about, right? Is just breathing life into other people and caring deeply for them. And so, yeah, I'm excited about this conversation.
Awesome. Well, we are excited to have you here. Monique, welcome.
Thank you so much, Deb. I am so happy to be here. Any place where I can be, where the conversation is around leadership, is terrific. I really focus on helping leaders set a good example for the people that they influence. And I think there is not enough support for leaders, not enough resources, which is one of the reasons why I wrote my book. So I work with them to help them shift their behavior so that they can be better leaders and set that good example.
And I know you have your book for show and tell, so please share the title.
The title is The Survive and Thrive Toolkit for Leaders by Mango.
And I love the word thrive because that is an element. It's not about survival, although a lot of days it feels that way. When you choose yourself and your goals and in cases your team, and you've got that mission behind it, that's when everybody benefits.
Exactly. And I think the leader is the one to facilitate all of that. So they have to be able to have the skill set and the behaviors to set that example.
Excellent. And Jess, always lovely to see you in one of my Brady Bunch squares.
It is so great to be back. I tell you what, the GoalChat Live is one of these places where I'm always excited because I will take away one or two ideas. And that is actually the crux of why I do what I do, which is where is the nugget of information that can help the most people and then have it be available to them exactly when they need it, where they're at on their journey. And my focus is strategic growth. So I'm working with leadership teams and executives and entrepreneurs to grow when it's tough, to grow in spite of where we're at and who we are, and become the people that we must to get to where we want to go and make a difference that way.
Because leadership is all about all of the pieces.
It's all of the pieces. That's exactly right.
Awesome. Well, you've all pretty much touched on this, but I want to get a little bit deeper on the big question, which is, what is leadership? What counts? Jess, you want to start us out? I know it's a big question, but we got to start
a big question.
somewhere.
And you know, I was thinking that this was going to be a question, so I was trying to decide, how is she going to give me a specific area, or is she just going to open it up? And go figure. You open it up.
You know me. You should have known that answer.
So start big. And that is, leadership starts with our own heart or our own gut, wherever we make decisions from. And some of us do make decisions from our brain first, so I want to include that as well. And if we can really feel in ourselves what the emotion is and name it, we can always take a step forward with awareness so that we can meet people where they're at. If we don't know where we're at, we can't meet somebody else where they're at, which means, well, it's a higher chance of disconnect or being frozen in time in a way. And I don't know what, I'm probably going to speak to the choir here. The rising tide lifts all ships. That's it. The rising tide lifts all ships. And I firmly believe in that when it comes to leadership. So we start with ourselves.
Well, you know, you are speaking to the choir. This is a very yes and kind of a conversation. And the thing that I particularly love about it is, so with the Deb method, the D is determine your mission. If you do not start with the foundation for anything, where are you going to go? I know it sounds rhetorical. I probably should have phrased it as a question.
Well, you know, that's actually not a bad, that's actually really important. Some of us, like me, I act to plan. When I started Red Direction, it was not Red Direction because I didn't know what I wanted to do. I just needed to get out and get action, to get data, to put stuff in order. And so I guess my goal was to act if we were to put a structure around it, Deb. And so I always appreciate the fact that, we got to know where we're going, or we have this idea of what we want. And I'm not sure about you. Nothing that I thought I wanted actually looks like what I actually get. And it's almost always better by the time I get there.
Which is amazing. And it feels like we will not go into the pre-chat, but it sounds exactly what you were talking about in the pre-chat. You know, we're getting around to the end of the year and you start with some ideas and you end with some other things. But I think even as important as foundation is intention. You don't need to know everything, but you need to know. And before I tangent some more, Monique, same question. How do you define leadership?
Well, I would like to tie into what was just said, especially the statement, where are we at? We have to know where we're at. With my experience and the people that I work with, and I write about this in my book, I come from a background of a lot of childhood trauma. And I started in the corporate world when I was 22, before I actually knew where I was at, before I started healing from my trauma. So I experienced more trauma in the workplace, being led by leaders who shouldn't have been leaders, who may have also been traumatized and hadn't dealt with their trauma. They didn't know where they were at either. And they were in the workplace trying to do the job of a leader before actually working on themselves. So I think it's critical that we know who we are. We do that self-reflection. We do the work we need to do personally and professionally so that we are skilled at leading others, especially if leaders are to be an example. They need to be a healthy example. So to me, leadership does start with working on yourself first, understanding your gaps, your traumas, the things that trigger you in the workplace, because we're constantly being triggered by other people's behavior. And it's even worse if we haven't even recognized it. So that's my concept. It kind of ties into what was already said.
And if I were to tie a little bow on what you just said, is leadership is being a healthy example.
Yes, exactly.
Great. Marissa, do you have a yes and for the what is leadership?
Yes,
question?
and yes. I mean, both Jess and Monique have really articulated what I also think leadership is. I think leadership is this process of radical self-inquiry. Like, it's doing the hard work to ask yourself those difficult questions and those hard questions. Because as Monique was saying, you know, oftentimes we lead in a way that we have seen others lead, and we haven't figured out who we are and how we want to show up as a leader. And a lot of the work that I do with leaders is burnout. And so if you are leading in a way that is not aligned with who you are and the impact that you want to make and the influence that you want to have, that's going to lead to burnout. And so doing that process of radical self-inquiry, and then caring for others, caring for yourself in that process is also a big part of leadership. And I'm also a big proponent that leadership is not a title, right? It is an action. It is a verb. It is something that we are constantly doing, not only in our own lives, but helping to care for those who are amongst our group and our people.
Ooh, I love that. Leadership is not a title, it's an action. Way to hit the nail on the head, my friend.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, please go on.
No, go ahead. No, it is. It's a verb. It's not a title. And that's, we often think that leaders are the people with the big titles or the big fancy, you know, nameplate on the title. I don't even know. Do people have nameplates anymore? I guess we're not really working in offices much anymore. But you know, okay, well, there you go. There you go. But it's not a good title, right? You know, anybody can have a fancy title. Go ahead.
With your permission, I think that is going to be the subhead of the conversation.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
it's all of the pieces. And I was going to jump right into action, but I changed my mind from something that Monique said, which is, you know, what makes a good versus a bad leader? And I'm self-editing because I do not want this to be a political conversation. So let's not. But I think the conversation is really, you know, whether you're an educator or a corporate executive or really even an entrepreneur who has a team that supports you, you are living this verb. So, Monique, we're going to go back to you. What makes a good leader versus a bad one?
Well, I can speak from the clients that I have that come to me with situations and issues and goals, and having been given feedback They come to coaching with things to work on. So what I see from that is that if there is no psychological safety on a team, if the leader is micromanaging, if they're not communicating, if they're not giving feedback, positive or constructive, if they're just withholding feedback, those are all things that can contribute to the perception of a bad leader. And it can cause a team to underperform, to quit, to not be cohesive, to have conflict, all these things that can lead to unhealthy teams or toxic teams.
Thank you for that. And I think we're going to split up the question, because let's go through what makes a bad leader, and then we're going to circle back to what makes a good one, other than just don't do the bad leader things. Marissa, what do you think? What are the qualities of a bad leader?
Well, I was ready to answer the good leader. The bad leader. Yeah, I think kind of what like Monique was saying, I think the lack of psychological safety, the lack of trust, the lack of a mindset of a we versus I, like I think a lack of care for others. I think those are the keys that are the key ones that I would hit on.
Okay, and you added very well to that statement. So Jess, your turn. What are the qualities of a bad leader? And then we can go back to my land, which is the positive one.
This is tough because I will. I'm only going to speak about myself here. Once upon a time, in a land far, far away, of a young girl named Jess trying to lead a company at 21 years old, remote people and on-site people. I had no idea what I was doing. All of a sudden, I had all of these people that I was responsible for and had to guide. And so I had the best intentions, but I ended up trying and failing at this management by book club, by business book club. I literally put that into practice, and it lasted a whole 6 months because it occurred to me at some point in time, I had to figure all this out, and I had to be able to do this because my job was to empower those around me. And having other people read business books to help me manage and get stuff done was actually preventing them from doing their best work.
So it was a literal book club.
I literally was like, this is the book we're going to read. Can we figure out how to do this work together? And everybody read a couple of chapters a week, and off we went. Oh, yeah. It was literally managed by book club.
Wow. I feel like that could be like a good supplement to leadership.
Well, right. But at the time I didn't know any better. So, and I'm just going to I'll just tell stories about me when they make sense, because I think we all have moments, and every leader has blind spots. And I would hate for a leader who is attempting to a business owner or somebody who's got the vision in mind to get categorized as a bad leader if they're trying.
Right.
That's important to me. Yeah.
So inexperience can lead to poor leadership.
Or inexperience, lack of experience, not having, to all the conversations we've already had, right? Not having a good example, only going by what we know without being open to different ways or progressive ways. Or, if we want to innovate, we need to innovate at all levels, not just products and services.
Right. So now you can answer the what makes a good leader question. And I'm going to start with Marissa on this because she was so excited and I made her wait.
Well, I was going to say a bad leader, I would add, is one that, like I was saying earlier, is one that hasn't done that radical self-inquiry, the one that hasn't taken the time to get to know themselves. And so a good leader is the opposite of that, is somebody that has taken the time to spend in reflection, that has time to say, like, was that a good choice? Did I do that well? Like, taking that time and that space, because I think that's where a lot of leaders are missing the mark. And I think that's sometimes what differentiates a good leader and a bad leader is the one that is pressing pause, being intentional, and taking time for reflection.
Jess is going to be all over this one.
I am. Well, it's interesting because last week I had a really great conversation with a woman, Grace Gavin. She's the co-author of No Honesty. And one of the things that I realized and I took away from my conversation with her was that communication is a scale, right? If you can put it on any scale you want. And this is my takeaway. This is not her words here. So from that, my view now is without communication, leadership can't exist. Being an example that other people can have their mission statements or their own missions hooked to do work together can't exist. And so figure out a scale for communication. Where are you at on that? And can you keep developing that so that we can meet people where they are? Because when we do, we win. The people that we're interacting with win. And then there's also that extra ripple or 5 or 6 that go out, which I like to call winfinity.
Winfinity.
Winfinity. Yes, I did not coin that. I did borrow that, and the guys who did come up with it are amazing and let me use it. And so I've used it for a long, long, long time.
That is the point of leadership and teamwork rolled together, is to get to winfinity.
Mm-hmm.
Monique, what do you think makes a good leader?
Well, I think the common theme here so far has been the self-awareness, the reflection, which happens when you slow down and you're intentional about your actions. So I think to add to that, I would have to say empathy. A lot of my clients come to coaching having been given feedback that they don't have enough empathy. And they feel that if they were to try to develop that, they would become like a doormat and be walked all over. So what we work on in coaching is that it is important to have empathy with boundaries. And I add boundaries to that because I think it's possible to do both. You have to have good boundaries with your people, but you also have to be empathetic. So, that falls under really this whole umbrella that we're talking about, which is emotional intelligence and self-reflection and knowing yourself and knowing when you have to step up with some of these skills. So I think empathy with boundaries is what I would say.
Can we talk about the doormat comment for a minute? Because I feel like, because I don't want to stereotype women, but I am afraid I might. We like to say yes, I think, more than men do. Correct me if I'm wrong. It's just, anecdotal, just from the people who have been on the show. I think, or my personal position on the word no is when you say no to something that is not a fit, you're saying yes to yourself and an opportunity, something that is a fit for you, and you give someone else the opportunity to say yes. So why do you think where do you think the whole doormat mentality comes from, and how do we fix that? Monique?
Well, what my female clients tell me when they come to coaching and we're talking about setting boundaries, they are hesitant to do that. And they're very honest with me. And they say, I want people to like me. I'm already a woman and I'm already feeling like I'm at a disadvantage. So if I start setting boundaries, I'm not going to be liked and it's going to dovetail. And I'm just afraid to say no. So we really have to do some deep work around that. And these are things that have been ingrained from the time people are children, depending on, I go back to my experience and my childhood trauma. It all goes back to the way we were brought up and our culture and all of that. So there has to be a lot of deep work that goes along with all of this. And I think that's why some people are afraid to come to coaching, because it is hard work. They know they're going to have to do the work. But they find that as soon as they start saying no, it has so many benefits for them that they didn't even realize before.
So doormatism, that is the word I am making up today, comes from old tapes, old experiences. Is that what you're saying?
And existing problems in our workforce. We do not have equal pay across genders. And I will tell you right now, when I lived in Colorado, and I still support them even though I'm not there anymore, the Colorado Women's Education Fund actually was the one who told me this, and where I learned about it. To have anywhere close to equal pay, women need 2 degrees for every man's 1. And that has been in existence for a very long time. And so when we think about this, I actually think there's an element of we're trying to prove ourselves. And there's nothing wrong with that. We just need to understand what the basis is and what do we want to prove. Because if it's not in line with what we want, then we're not going to be able to show up the way that we can really make the most in the world, coming back all the way back to boundaries.
Marissa?
Yes. So I heard a quote today, actually, that I wanted to share, and I don't have the woman's last name, and so I'm going to get that for you, and so we can quote that appropriately. But her name is Prentice, and she's, boundaries are the distance at which I can love you and me simultaneously. And I love that definition, because I'm all about infusing more love into our workplaces, because I do believe that is a foundation for leadership as well. But I think boundaries are as Jess was saying, like, especially as women, we have been conditioned, and we are under these good girl conditioning, these societal expectations. We feel like we have to prove something. For my clients, a lot of them come in and feel like they have to prove their worth. And so the first conversation that we have is, you are worthy, period, hard stop. You are offering your value, and you are there to share and your value and what you can contribute to the table. But I think so many of us are so afraid to say no because of all of those societal expectations and that good girl conditioning. And we want to be kind, we want to be good, we want to be liked, the people pleasing, all of those things. I could go on and on. But yeah, I'm going to get you that quote for that, or that person's name, so that we can attribute that quote specifically. But yeah,
it's a good one, definitely. So how do we fix this whole leadership conundrum? What are things that, and I'll say anybody, because let's not leave out the other gender. What are things anyone can do to develop better leadership skills?
I'll start. I would say, as the vision holder, as the primary decision maker, as the person who is responsible for making sure everybody's paths are clear to do their best work, we're also expected to have the answer. So regardless of who we are, regardless of our age, regardless of our experience, regardless of anything, when we move up in a company, we do end up dealing with more ambiguity, and people are going to look to us for answers that we do not have. And so honoring, okay, cool, I'm going to be making decisions without all the information. I'm going to be helping contribute to solutions with imperfect information. People are going to look to me. So can I be confident enough, and can I bring the examples to the table, and can I know in my heart, gut, and head that I can support whatever comes out of this and the path forward that is decided upon, and we can go together. That is something that I think when we can claim, it's okay we don't have any answers, and it's okay we're still developing, and it's okay that we're still working, because we're becoming as we do.
So work in progress?
I think that's too simplified.
Okay.
I know you're looking for a one-liner, Deb. I know you're
okay, well, we can three-liner it. Absolutely. there's responsibility with leadership, and you
We're
have
not
to
going to have all
own.
the answers, and we still must make decisions.
Yes, we have to
About
own
that.
what we do and do not know.
Right.
Was
Wait,
that?
did you say we have control over that?
No, I said we have to own it.
Oh, thank you. Own it. Yes. Yes, that's right. I'm on board for that, Deb.
Okay, good.
I know, Deb. I'm like, I love the bows. And I'm like, yeah, we'll get a better one. We'll get the perfect one. Or add a
You've
second
been
one.
here before, right? but that's it. And sometimes you're absolutely right. It's not about putting a bow on things. Here, I'm going to use my response to your answer as an example.
Yeah.
You don't need to, I think, is what you're saying. You don't need the bow. You just need the information, and whether you just need to know what you know and what you don't know.
Yep. And we actually just did an example, didn't we, Deb? I was like, well, that's too simplified. And what'd we do? So you reflected again, and we did a yes and we got to something that was even better together.
I love it when we can do these really focused rabbit holes within the conversation.
Yep.
And without any segue at all whatsoever, Monique, what tips do you have for developing leadership skills?
Leaders need to focus on developing a support system for themselves. I think they get very caught up in the day-to-day, and they're trying to meet goals and KPIs and run their team, and they forget to get support for themselves. And then they end up operating out of a silo, and they think they're the only one dealing with some of these problems and these challenges. So I think it's really important for them to figure out how to be supported. And that doesn't always mean by their boss. Sometimes that's not a good support.
The other thing, because, far be it for me to drill down on Jess and not on you, but one of my pet peeves is people who have one question and they ask like 20 people. It drives me bananas. And part of it is, at least my standpoint is, you need to have enough information before you start asking questions so you can be objective in analyzing the responses, but also 20 people, completely unnecessary. So how can people get support without falling into that pit that's just waiting to eat them up?
Well, I think they need to know where their gaps are, and then find support people that will help them improve those gaps. And it still takes us back to self-awareness and knowing who they are. But, leaders can have they can have mentors in the workplace. They can have people outside of the workplace. They can have all kinds of support when they are facing, and the support doesn't mean that they need to ask that same question of all those people, but they might have a subject matter expert in one area, and they go to that person for certain things and go to other people for other things. I think they need to diversify, actually, their support system.
And I love that you mentioned mentorship, because part of it, there are both sides of it. Part is being the mentor and the other is being the mentee. And you need people on both sides of that, I think, to get the most benefit from it.
Exactly. I think CEOs need mentors. It happens all the time. And sometimes they don't know they need mentors, or they won't admit that they need them. But I think everyone should have a mentor and a coach.
Marissa, what is your take on the whole? What do people need to be better at their gig?
I'm going to offer 3 things. They're unconventional. So this is your unconventional leadership advice.
That's what I want.
One is what we've been talking about already, is doing your own work, right? Getting in, and whether it's with a therapist, whether it's a coach, taking the time, creating the space to figure out who you are as a leader. The second one is to create a pause practice, whatever that looks like. So for me, and what I always encourage my clients is figure out what day of the week works best for you. For me, Friday mornings is my best time. So on Friday mornings, I walk through what worked well, what didn't work well, what do I want to change for next week, or what do I need to shift for next week. I think that is pivotal to becoming a better leader. And then the third thing is move your body. And the reason is that creates a higher level of creativity and innovation. It allows you to get unstuck. It offers you greater clarity. It allows you also to just take care of that physical, mental, spiritual space in your body. It also allows you to process emotions, right? Leadership can be emotional. There's a lot of things that we're carrying there. And so being able to walk, move your body, whatever, dance, whatever that looks like for you, doing that. And that's one of the things that I do with my clients. We go on well-being walks where we use nature as a co-facilitator for our conversations about leadership. And you'd be amazed at what nature can teach us about leadership. So those are my 3 unconventional ones.
Well, unconventional, but also very personal. And the last week's episode was on the power of dance. And it's for those reasons it's good for your physical, mental, and emotional health.
Yeah.
So all of knowing, going back to the whole self-reflection, but also putting in more of the good. So you are the best you is going to benefit you and obviously your team. And I love that you use personal examples. So I'm going to go back to Monique and Jess for what works for you best as a leader to be your best you. Monique?
Well, I have a whole regimen of things that I do. And mainly it's because of my trauma, because I'm always on a healing journey because of my trauma. So I have a whole regimen of physical practices. I used to be a competitive bodybuilder, so I weightlift daily and do a lot of yoga and Pilates and hiking and physical activities. But I also am a Buddhist, so I have a really robust spiritual practice that involves meditation, breath work, and all kinds of other spiritual practices. And those things keep me really centered and grounded, especially with the work that I do with leaders who come to the calls all, filled with angst and chaos and everything. So I have found that those things, and I do them daily, morning and night. So I'm pretty disciplined about it.
I love that. And again, I love your transparency in how you are still working through, because we're all a work in progress. And the other thing is, and I say this all the time, when I'm leading goal workshops, I do the things that I tell you or that I recommend to others, because the minute I think I know better than myself, then right?
Yes.
So it always works better when we do as we say. And Jess, what do you do? And I'm going to be a mind reader that it's going to reflect very strongly what Marissa just said.
Which is funny because it's what I usually gift to people, and I'm not going to do that today. So yeah, I do a weekly present retreat, and it is a combination of personal work, but it is also very focused on business because I need to know how to communicate with my team. And by the way, I do teach this to all of the people that I consult with and that I facilitate offsites for. Same thing. And it's 20% of my work week. Okay. So that is something that I worked up to. And it is important because that timeout, that pause, that protected time to check in with myself, figure out what I need to be saying, where is my frustration, so that I can get that resolved, so that I can show up to meet everybody else where they are and help them remove their obstacles and help them be the best that they can be, not only when we're working together, but in the world, is ultimately that ripple of infinity that goes out that direction. And I learned a new word recently, and I'm still, I think it's so novel. Somebody said, Jess, I nature bathe. And I was like, what is this nature bathing? And they said, I walk in the woods. And I said, well, I do that too. So I nature bathe. When I go hiking, because that's the thing that I it's how I take care of myself. It's all of the things. And I do it in silence. My podcasts stay home. My audiobooks stay home. I usually, if I'm with somebody, we're not talking. It's a more of a silent approach. So that's a way that I take care of my own soul and let things bubble up and bubble out that need to. Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's so good. That's
Isn't that
such a
great?
good term. And I'm doing, and it's a little bit different. So throughout the month of November, on all at the Deb Method Social, I'm hosting a networking tip a day. And I think the second one I did was take a walk outside without your devices.
Yeah.
And my take on it is because then you might encounter people and have a conversation, which you're never going to do if you're staring at a screen. But that other bonus element of it, of just being with yourself, it's so powerful. But so many people, it's just easier to rush and not spend time in nature baths or self baths or whatever. Right. I'm sure we can come up with a couple
with all kinds of things. Well, it's interesting, Deb, and this goes into something that Monique was saying with all of the routines and rituals that she goes through, and that is there's these random things that I hear that I'll try out for a while, and sometimes they stick and sometimes they don't. So for me, we have no devices in any of our bedrooms in our house, none. Anybody with a bed in my house, unless you're a guest, but if you live under my roof, there are no devices in your room when you sleep. So you wake up and you can actually wake up and see the day before you get on a screen. And the second one is, for me, turned out to be caffeine. Well, I'm like this all the time, right? Lots of energy, all kinds of stuff going on. And I was actually really tired for a while. And somebody said, did you know caffeine can actually impact how slow you go later in the day? So wait 90 minutes. So I did. And I don't drink coffee. Imagine me on coffee, right? But any caffeine, 90 minutes after I wake up, and then I get to enjoy it because it's the flavor that I like, but it's actually not changing or interfering with whatever my emotional state is, or my what's coming up, or my anxiety level of the day. All of those things have a chance to settle in before anything else happens. So when Monique was speaking a little bit earlier, I was like, oh yeah, I have these random things, and there's a lot that I've never kept over time, but there are two things, that if they help somebody, great. If they don't, keep trying. Find yours.
Trial and error it's for everything. It's why, in these recaps, which, by the way, if you go to debmethod.com/blog, you get the recap and the replay to this. But this is why I call out the goals and the final thoughts, because even if the only thing you do is read the goals, there are things that you could test out to try and infuse in your life and see if they work. It is actually the whole point of the new book on the 52 Secrets is this is a menu. What do you need to test these out, take them for a spin, and see what comes of it? Mm-hmm. But I think that that's relevant in every category: leadership, well-being, action, anything is a matter of going back to the start of the conversation. Where does leadership start? With self-awareness. When you know who you are, what you stand for, everything can grow. You don't need it concrete, but you do need to have that information so you can go through your day as the best you possible. So how is that for putting things on with a nice little bow tie before we even before we even explored the whole gift and goals process? So, and before we do that, I just would love to get your thoughts, or just quick thoughts, on how leadership and teamwork work together, because they do. Marissa?
Ooh, I always say, because again, I work at the intersection of leadership and well-being. And so I always say that if you are not well, your team is not well. And so going back to exactly what you just said, right? Leadership starts with you. Leadership starts within. You've got to take care of you, because if not, then your people will not be well. Your team will not be well.
And it's the same thing with why we do personal and professional goals, because they're intertwined forever.
Yes.
Monique?
For me, I think the two intersect through psychological safety, through the leader making sure the team is safe and feels comfortable coming forward with information, with sharing ideas, with being creative and innovative, with making mistakes and not being punished for them. So I think if a team feels safe, they will be more productive, more cohesive, more innovative. And that's the leader's responsibility to make sure that happens.
Love it. And it's also by example, right?
Yes.
Jess?
I was going to talk about an 8th grade leadership class that my son is in, but I'm going to skip that because I think the point, though, that comes from that and where my inspiration for this answer came from is that every single person has a strength and an interest and has the opportunity to lead. And it is up to us in our teams to recognize who is naturally stepping up and support them in that to develop their goals and themselves as much as we are working on ourselves.
Now you will laugh. No, you won't laugh. But I was explaining someone today, I was sending an email because I do goal workshops for teams. And that is the whole purpose of doing goal setting within a team, is to identify your strengths and what you want, but also how it benefits the greater good. So I don't know if I was predicting you would say that, or it's just life and universal mind. But everybody, the leader sets the example, but the teammates have I don't even want to call them cogs. Teammates have such an important role. But just like with leaders, they need to identify their strengths and what they want to get to bring things to infinity. Okay, if you're listening to the podcast, everybody is just nodding, so I will go to another question. This is a great time, and Jess, we're going to start with you because I'm excited about what goal you're going to gift if it is not the present retreat. So,
right?
What is something our audience could do today, tonight, immediately to work on their leadership?
We all have goals, right? We're at GoalChat Live here. We have goals. And so I was thinking about that and and it just solidified and turned out that, yes, I think this is the right thing for this conversation. My suggestion is to take 10 days. That's 5 working days for 2 weeks, and pick something to notice. Is there a place that you're struggling to reach your goals? Is there a place where there is some sort of resistance, whether it's internal or external? And once a day, notice, where did that friction show up? Because I will bet you after 10 days, I won't bet you. I will tell you that you will learn something about yourself after those 10 days. It might be, oh, I see this, I find the pattern in it, and I can use this strength to help me move through. Oh, I see the pattern in it. Oh, it's actually all around this one thing. I know this is an area I've been working on. Regardless, it is an opportunity for us as individuals to just do a quick check-in every day, see the pattern, and decide, how can I try something different to make a different outcome?
That's terrific. And I would love like a concrete example. Do you have one?
Of course I do. Give me just like 2 breaths to figure out which one to share. Okay, so I was just working with I was just working with a business owner, and they came to me and they never had any time. And so their goal every single day at the end of the day for 10 days was to write down, how much do you think you got done? What are you glad you got done? What do you wish you had gotten done? And at the end of those 10 days, this business owner was able to walk away and let go of tasks that didn't matter anymore, that were just weighing on them, preventing them from actually getting the right work done.
Ooh, that's good. I like that. Monique, what goal do you want to gift?
My book is filled with action items, just like my coaching sessions are at the end of each session. So one of the action items at the end of one of the chapters where we talk about gaps, skill gaps, and I don't see gaps as weaknesses. I just see them as things we need to be aware of and improve. So one of the action items in my book that I'll give to the listeners today is to share a gap that you have with someone that you trust and see what happens. Have a conversation about it. Talking about it out loud brings your awareness to it. And since we've been talking about awareness and reflection this whole time, sharing a gap helps you to be more aware of it and determine how you want to improve it.
That's great. Now, do you have an example?
Yes, one of my clients had been told and given feedback and knew about himself that he was not a good listener. So listening was one of his gaps. And he brought it to me to coaching, but I realize many people don't have coaches. And I think it's important that if you're going to share something vulnerable about yourself, you do it with someone that you trust. So in his case, he shared that with me and we put together a plan as to how to improve that.
In a way, it dovetails off of Jess's, identify what the thing is and have a conversation, or if you already know, just have the conversation and underline someone you trust and also someone who's got your best interest at heart. And we all know who those people are.
Right. Yeah.
Excellent. And Marissa, what goal are you gifting today?
I think my goal is to develop a pause practice, as I was speaking to earlier, because I think so often leaders especially do not create time for rest. And we have this mindset and this belief in our world, in our society, in our workplaces that rest is not productive. And so I want to challenge leaders to create that pause practice. And so whether it is on Monday or Sunday to start your work week, you create, and it doesn't have to be long, Deb. It doesn't have to be long. It can be 10 minutes, it can be 30 minutes, it can be a minute. But finding some time that works for you that you can consistently do on a day that you can consistently do. As I mentioned, I do mine on Friday mornings. Finding that time where you can pause and take stock on what's working, what's not working, and what do you need to shift or change, whether that's a mindset, an action, or behavior, so that you can continue to move forward towards the goals that you've set and the vision that you have for your life and your work.
That's great, and no example needed. And the other thing that I think is terrific about what you said is it can be 10 minutes.
Yeah.
10 minutes. And even when I talk about dance breaks, I say 2 minutes work. I mean, maybe you want more than 2, but what is the quote? If you don't have time to meditate for 10 hours a day, then if you don't have time to meditate for 10 minutes a day, then you probably need to meditate for an hour or something like that.
Yes. Yeah.
But to embrace the 10 minutes or 15 or 20 or whatever and say, sitting alone with my thoughts or even vegging out or whatever, that self-care is going to improve everything.
Yes. Your productivity, your creativity, your innovation, everything. It will impact all of those things. And I live on a cul-de-sac. I'm in suburbia. I'm in Charlotte, North Carolina, on the East Coast of the States. And sometimes I just go outside and walk my cul-de-sac. It takes me 2 minutes, but it's just that deep breath, and that just, it allows my body to relax, which allows me to come back in and be clearer and more impactful in my work.
So 2-minute dance breaks, 2-minute pause buttons. If you could do 5 or 10 or 20, terrific. But if all you have is the 2 to walk around your house or your cul-de-sac or whatever. But I think what it starts with is being okay with hitting that pause button.
Yes. I had a client say to me the other day, Marissa, my coffee gets really cold throughout the day and I have to go heat it up. And so every time she goes to heat her coffee up, that is her intentional pause. And so she doesn't do anything. She just stands there and just takes some deep breaths. And that's her pause practice. And so she does that probably 3 or 4 times a day. That adds up,
That's terrific.
Yeah. And that's a practical thing that you can do that we're all doing.
Right. Yeah. Or whenever I use the air fryer, which is like daily, if you're heating something, it is like 2 to 4 minutes, and then you flip it. And that's also the perfect pause time. And it's a productivity time, because sometimes productivity isn't doing stuff. Sometimes productivity is just being. Yes. And this, I know, is a leadership conversation, but it's also like such a human conversation. It doesn't matter what you are doing, leader, teammate, consultant, entrepreneur, visionary, thought leader, whatever. You can take this in these tips into your life and see, I'm going to try these things and watch the impact that it is going to make. Ooh, such a deep, fun conversation. My favorite kind that are deep and fun. Friends, where can people learn more about you and how you help others? Marissa?
Yes. So I'm over on LinkedIn, Marissa Wheeling Ciesluk. You can find me over there, or you can find me at mwcleadership.com.
Excellent. And in the recaps, I always put everybody's LinkedIn in addition to their website. So thank you for mentioning that. Monique, where can people learn more about you?
I'm also on LinkedIn, and my website is mdconsultingglobal.com. And my book, The Survive and Thrive Toolkit for Leaders, is available on Amazon.
Or anywhere you love to buy books.
Yes. And the audiobook just came out a few weeks ago, too.
Oh, exciting.
Yeah.
That's so much fun. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Jess, where can people learn more about you?
Thanks for sending them over to LinkedIn. In addition, reddirection.com, which is where we're talking about growth strategies for all of us at every stage of our business.
Wonderful. And as I mentioned before, I'm at the Deb Method everywhere. I am live every Monday at 4 p.m. Pacific. Talk about picking a time each week when you can be available. I've done this since spring of 2020, but finding a day each week where I can convene with awesome people. So like I said, broadcast live. You can also subscribe to my YouTube at the Deb Method, or subscribe to GoalChat on your favorite podcast platform, which again is part of the Marketing Podcast Network. If you are looking for, and I love that this is considered a marketing podcast, because everything that we do in taking care of ourselves and our business is part of uplifting us, so we can uplift our clients, our audience, to help make the world a better place, which is why we are all here. And if you need a little bit of help with your goals, you can reach out to me, Deb, at thedebmethod.com, or grab a copy of your goal guide at your favorite place to buy books. And you can also pre-order 52 Secrets for Goal Setting and Goal Getting, how to stay focused, grow your network, and get more done in less time. It is all about looking and seeing what you need and finding ways to incorporate it into your life, which is pretty much what this entire conversation has been about. No matter where you are on that leadership spectrum, you have to be the best you. And when you are the best you, then you can have a greater impact on the world. Final thoughts? Monique, what is your final thought? What would you like to leave people with?
Well, I earlier gave the example of leaders finding support, and I think this event today was the perfect example of support for all of us gathering, sharing ideas and thoughts around leadership. So I have had an amazing time. So thank you, all of you.
Well, I'm so glad we were able to make this happen. Thank you for sharing your love of leadership. Marissa, final thought?
My final thought is exactly what you just said, Deb, is that leadership is a human experience, and it is human-centered. And I am grateful to have been with all of you humans and all of the humans that are listening and watching out there as well. Thank you for this conversation. It's one we definitely needed to be having.
Thank you. And unless it's on purpose, my people who I bring together don't know each other, and everybody today just met a few minutes before we went live. And I think that is part of the joy of what I do, is I get to curate these panels and bring people together who need to have each other in their life. So thank you all for being here. Jess, you get the final thought.
The final thought. It's risky to do what we've talked about today. It takes courage and boldness. And I am glad that we are normalizing these types of conversations. What can we do? How can we show up? Not only to get the support that we need, but also to be the support for others when we're approached, and maybe even be more open to looking for those if somebody doesn't know how to directly ask us.
Amazing. Yes. And that is another really key point. This is very passive. I mean, you could tune in and get some great takeaways and try it. Or you can reach out to one or all of us, connect with us on LinkedIn, or ask a question, or state, how do you need support? Because at least I know from my connector point of view, if I don't know the answer, here we'll do a call back to Jess, I know who I can reach out to, who might. And we're all, to echo what everybody said, we're all in this together. So let's all be in this together and continue to create this wonderful community of support and uplifting. And thank you for choosing to be uplifted today. Go spend some me time and really hone in on your gifts and how you can better lead and better impact the world. Go on out there and go for it, because we know you can do it.